Hello. Just to give you a heads up, we're starting very soon. So you're going to be watching us here in this place very soon. Hello there. My name is Matthew Clywett. I'm one of your Indigenous grad coaches. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing good. Tomorrow is a non-school day because it's Orange Shirt Day. We hold a remembrance on this day because in September 1973, 6-year-old Phyllis Webstad was apprehended and sent to St. Joseph's Mission Residential School. When she got there, her clothes were taken from her, including the nice orange shirt her grandmother had given her. This memory stuck with Phyllis and became a symbol for having her family and community and culture and childhood taken from her. Today, we would like to have a conversation about that. My mom was taken from her family when she was just 6 years old and taken to a residential school. Just like her parents were and their parents were before them. I care about this subject a lot. I'm going to tell you or remind you of some things that I think are your responsibility to know. Not because any of this is your fault, because it's not, but because you live here and the history of this place still needs to be addressed. Residential schools were not schools. They were government funded, church operated re-education camps. Their function wasn't education. It was literally to destroy First Nations people in Canada. Children were cut off from their families. Their clothing was cut off, literally. Their hair was cut short, and they were issued drab gray uniforms. They slept in dorms full of strangers, were beaten if they spoke their language or practiced their faith. If they ran away, they were hunted down, arrested, and brought back. They were alone and powerless, without legal rights or protections. Conditions were very poor. Over several generations, children were routinely beaten, starved, sexually assaulted, and sometimes experimented on. Thousands of children died. Things happened in those places that I won't speak of. Children who survived were scarred for life by this experience. This is where we normally end this conversation, and we pause respectfully. But what happened next? In 2008, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was formed to document the history of residential schools and recommend actions going forward. The TRC spent 6 years traveling to all parts of Canada and heard from more than 6,500 witnesses. If you want to know things I won't tell you, read some of those statements. The TRC also hosted 7 national events across Canada to engage the Canadian public, educate people about the history and legacy of the residential school system, and share and honor the experiences of former students and their families. In the same year, then Prime Minister Stephen Harper read an apology to former students and their families in Parliament. In June 2015, The TRC held its closing event in Ottawa and presented the executive summary of the findings contained in its multi volume final report, including 94 calls to action or recommendations to further reconciliation between Canadians and Indigenous peoples. Justice Murray Sinclair sums it up well. We are writing a report so that we can arm the reasonable people out there. We need to be able to give the tools, the knowledge, and the reference that people who want to fight for the cause of reconciliation need in order to be leaders for reconciliation in their particular circles. The cause of reconciliation is still here. Generations of people were killed and hurt, and the consequences of that hurt are still all around us. I don't speak Cree, and I didn't grow up around many Cree things. Not because my mom couldn't teach me, but because she was afraid to. She thought teaching me those things would be bad for me, that would be dangerous. Residential school did that. There's a man downtown who was taken from his family as a child, bounced around foster homes, and now he sleeps on the street under a fog of drugs. Residential school caused that. 2 men on James Smith Cree Nation stabbed 10 people to death in their own community earlier this month. What has to happen to produce a man like that? Residential schools produced the environment that made those men. I could go on. There was an investigation that carefully documented the extent of this crime. There was an official apology. Now where do we go? This history isn't yours, but it's Canada's history. It's the history of where you are. You are now a part of what Canada is. As reasonable people, what can you do? Your class is going to discuss this. Jess and I will ask a series of questions, and you will have 5 minutes for each question. Then we'll come back, and Jess will have some closing words. We're going to ask the first of those questions here very shortly. So, first question. Why is it so damaging to lose your family at age 6 and have a childhood of violence, neglect, and fear? What would be harder for you now with that background? You can discuss this in your class now. And not everyone has to speak, but it would be nice if everyone has a chance to contribute.
Okay, let's now move on to the next question. The next question is, what would you be like if the adults you grew up with hurt you and made fun of you? How would that impact you?
Okay, and now let's move on to the next question. Where do we go from here? I've always thought that revenge is a very unproductive thing, very damaging thing. Revenge isn't what anybody's looking for. We're talking about justice. What is the difference between revenge and justice in this situation? What would those things look like?
Next question is, why is it important to establish the truth first when someone is trying to make things right?
All right. Next question. So, of course, this history is not any of our fault, but what are our responsibilities to Indigenous people regarding the history of what residential schools have done?
Okay, this is our last question. What would it look like for the legacy of residential schools to be solved? So that means the traumas associated with having attended residential schools. What would it take to solve that? Thank you. I would now like to talk about the importance of reconciliation. Whether you have recently migrated to Canada or your family migrated to Canada a long time ago, we as non-Indigenous people share responsibility for establishing and maintaining mutually respectful relationships with Indigenous people and with the land that we live, work, and play on. We are all treaty people. So where do we go? What can we do? Many of us wear orange on Orange Shirt Day to honor the victims of residential school and to demonstrate our allyship towards the many Indigenous people who are living with the legacies of colonization and with the consequences associated with intergenerational trauma. However, I would encourage everyone to take one step further, an action beyond wearing an orange shirt. We do not wish to be performative allies. And so here are some ideas and examples of actions that you can take on Friday, September 30th. Wear orange and listen to residential school survivors on the radio, on TV, on social media. Wear orange and educate yourself on residential schools and read Indigenous literature. Google, YouTube, and the Edmonton Public Library are all free, friends. Wear orange and read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. You can also Google it. It's free. Wear orange and use your voice and your intellect to help decolonize colonial systems. Wear orange and donate to the Indian Residential School Survivor Society. And wear orange and attend an event hosted by Indigenous people. Right here in Edmonton, known as Amiskwashi Waskaigon, there are local Indigenous organizations like the Bent Arrow Healing Society hosting a free online virtual event. If you follow Bent Arrow on Facebook, you can find the direct link to this event. However, if you are interested, you should probably register first. Bent Arrow will present teachings that include a talk on generational trauma by Dr. Leona Makokis and a performance by Dallas Arcand to celebrate Indigenous community and togetherness during this difficult time. This event is for all treaty people, which means everyone. Yes, you. You can register for this event on their Facebook page. There is also an Orange Shirt Day walk and or run on Friday, September 30th, which will start with a ceremony at the Indigenous Art Park at 3 p.m. in the River Valley, followed by the fundraiser walk or run at Kinsman Park at 4 p.m. You can, or I guess registration is closed now, but you can still show up to these events and participate for free. This event aims to bring an awareness for those who did survive residential schools and for those who did not. The funds raised are given to the Indian Residential School Survivor Society and to local grassroots movements. This is only one of many fundraiser walks and runs happening in the city tomorrow. And these are some of the ways in which we can spend our day tomorrow, on Friday, September 30th. So I want to thank everyone for opening your mind and listening to others and for participating in today's discussion.